Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the But First She Failed podcast. Have you ever gone through a day, maybe a week, maybe a few days, it could even be months, where you just felt so incredibly discouraged? You felt like you could not get to what you wanted to do the work that you maybe loved doing, not because you were lazy, but because you were so incredibly discouraged. I have been there before. I have dealt with deep discouragement, and I think this is such an important topic. And that's why I want to talk about today's episode. I want to talk about how to combat discouragement when it comes to your door and what to do, right? And so, to be completely transparent with you guys, this is something that I was dealing with today. So it's very fresh. Like I mentioned, I did an episode about this a few months ago and I actually listened to it, and it encouraged me earlier today as I was preparing for this episode. I wasn't sure what today's episode, I actually had a different idea for today's episode and then completely threw it away. I just felt that this was really important to have this conversation with you guys today about this topic, because I think it's something that affects so many of us, right? And it affects more people than we know. It may be affecting you. So today's episode is really for you. If you are a highly ambitious woman and maybe you have a business or you have a thriving career and people look to you as a leader, but what happens when you don't feel like showing up? What happens when you're feeling burnt out? What happens when you are feeling so discouraged that you just don't feel like showing up? And why is it important to show up? Or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and the season is just taxing you. It's feeling very overwhelming. I hope that you will listen to today's episode as well, because I pray that it will encourage you as well. Or maybe you are not even a woman. Maybe you're a man and you are just listening to this episode because you deal with deep discouragement. I want to just, encourage you in this moment. I want to encourage all of you, anyone that's listening, if you are dealing with deep discouragement because maybe an area of your life hasn't panned out the way you thought it would, I want to encourage you right now. I'm believing that, you will get there. You will get to that moment. The thing will come through. The breakthrough will happen for you. But let's dive into today's episode where we're talking about discouragement and, the different ways that you can combat it, right? So today's episode is showing up when you don't want to, battling through discouragement. Now let's hop into it. There's so many things about this topic. Like I said, this is something that I've dealt with in the past so much. In the past, I have dealt with depression. I've dealt with anxiety. I have dealt with deep worry, with all those things. So this is something that is very real and near to my heart. There's moments where, it just feels so overwhelming, right? You just don't want to show up. You know that things are good. Life might be good. You might look around and be like, wow, I'm so blessed. There's so many things, but you just feel so incredibly discouraged and you are combating that and fighting that. And so today's episode is for you. So discouragement, like I've mentioned in the episode that I did a few months ago, I can link that in the show notes as well. Discouragement is super normal, right? So often we think that, high achieving women don't feel discouraged, but they do. They 100% do. Everyone feels discouraged at one moment or another. I think that that's a lie that we tell ourselves. Maybe we're not as far along or something's wrong with me because I feel discouraged. I just want to encourage you that it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. This is a very human experience, something that we all go through. Maybe some of us deal with it a little deeper. Maybe some of us it's a little harder of a thing to overcome and we deal with it in a deeper way than others, especially if you deal with depression or anxiety or any of those other things. It can really couple with this and it can really be a little bit of a harder struggle, or not a little bit, quite a harder struggle, right? But I want to encourage you with that you can get through it. Again, I am no expert on this. I am not a therapist. I am not a mental health expert. I am just someone that's sharing my lived experiences with you. And I really hope that this will bless you. But again, one of the things that I want to talk about is how high achieving women don't feel discouraged. This is such a lie, right? They do. The difference is they've learned how to move through it. Why is this important? Because so often when you are leading in a space, when people look to you for different things, it can be very taxing. It can feel very lonely there, right? So it definitely happens to a high achieving woman. And if you are a high achieving woman and you feel like you're struggling with that, I just want to pray for you. I'm going to be praying for you. But you can definitely, the difference is they've learned how to move through it. They've learned how to show up in different moments of their lives, even when they didn't want to. And so in my life, what I've learned is that today, showing up for today's episode it was hard because again, I was very discouraged. And to give you a little bit of background, I've been just feeling a lot of discouragement. Things are great in life, but there's been little areas and little things that maybe I wanted to be further along in already, to just be 100% transparent, because that's what this whole podcast is about. We're real, right? We're going through this journey together. And I wanted things to be further along in certain areas, and they aren't quite where I envisioned them to be, right? When it comes to maybe the podcast, the business side of things and all that. And it can be very discouraging. And today it was such a blessing. A friend reached out, and one of me and a bunch of my good friends were on a chat. We're on a shout out to all the mommies on the mommy chat that we have. I just love these women so much. They're just such a great community of women, and I just love them. But one of my friends reached out and was like, "Hey, can I pray for you guys about anything?" And I was honest, and I was like, "Hey guys, I've been dealing with a lot of deep, deep discouragement and just sadness, and I'm doing all the right things in the word, working out, doing all the things, but I'm just feeling really sad." And so they prayed for me. A lot of other friends shared things as well. And I think that that's important. And the reason I'm sharing that is because just today, this morning, I was feeling very discouraged. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to, do an episode with my kids being so small and kind of coming back to this whole podcast thing, really, really part-time and very limited hours. I haven't been able to batch. I haven't been able to get ahead. So when I show up and I have one day to do it or a few hours to do it before I have to turn around the episode. That's just the reality of this season of my life. And that's totally okay. I'm pushing through. I'm doing what I'm going to talk about in this episode, pushing through. But the difference is, like I mentioned, I was so encouraged by that. And anyways, that encouraged me and helped me get ahead with today and helped me kind of figure out what this whole episode was going to be about, because I had something else planned and I had to push that down and come up with a new episode. And that's okay as well, right? But the point of this long-winded story is that 10 years ago, when I was discouraged, when I first started my first YouTube channel and I was incredibly discouraged, I did not know how to move through it, right? I was so discouraged. When I would get discouraged and it would last for weeks, right? Like, let's say I was consistent about YouTube, and if I would kind of start getting into a rhythm with it and I would get discouraged, and I just completely fell off, and I completely basically shut the whole thing off for 10 years. I didn't go back to YouTube. And so the difference is I have learned in the last 10 years how to move through it. Though I was very discouraged, I was extremely discouraged this morning in the last few days. Thankfully, I was able to move through it this morning. I was able to get it together, and I showed up even though I didn't want to show up, right? Today is not the most perfect day. It's not the day that I would have chosen to show up, but I knew that I had to show up because I have the muscle memory, right? So it's just the difference of I've shown up quite a few times in life, in different moments, in different things, in different scenarios, when I really did not want to show up, when I really wanted to be in bed, I really wanted to be crying, I really wanted to be doing whatever. And I've showed up so many times that it's a little bit easier for me to show up and do hard things now than it was, say, 10 years ago, right? And so the difference is I would identify with this, that I have learned to move through this. And so it is with you, right? I believe that if you are in a moment where you get discouraged, maybe you're there where it's like you get discouraged and you just completely fall off of a project, you just completely fall off of a dream or a side business, a side hustle, whatever that looks like, or going after your dream job or dream career, or, making the album, writing the book, whatever, because you get so discouraged. I believe that as you show up more to moments where it feels really hard, I believe you're going to learn how to move through it with more ease. It's not going to be easy. And I'm not going to say that you're never going to get discouraged and that it's just, going to be easy moving forward. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that you're going to learn how to move through it better, right? Another point is discouragement is often a sign that you're doing something meaningful. You're stretching outside of your comfort zone. I think this is so true, because if you love something so much, like let's say you are creating an album, you are an amazing musician or singer, and you're creating an album that you love, and maybe it's not moving along, it's because you love it, because it's a purpose, it's meaningful, it's driven, it's something that is pushing, is going outside. If it's something you didn't care about, you wouldn't feel so discouraged in that area, right? So discouragement and caring about something, they go hand in hand, right? So it's often time that you're doing something meaningful. A quote that I think is really helpful in this is, because so often the reason that we're discouraged is because we are not as far along in life as we would like to be in a certain area. Maybe you are not married. Maybe you thought you'd be married by now. Maybe you have the business hasn't taken off the way you wanted it to. Maybe, you are waiting for that baby and the baby has not come yet. Whatever that looks like, know that you're not behind. You're on time. God says you are on time. He's a God of restoration, and trust in that. But know that you're not behind, you're just building, right? And I think that is so encouraging to me as I think about that, because as you start building, right, you need these foundational levels of a building before you can skyrocket, right? Sometimes I've heard it be said that the foundation takes a long time to build when you are building a building, but then when you start building up a skyscraper, it's pretty fast. It goes pretty fast. Why? Because the foundation is strong and steady. Now everything can go up quicker. It's a faster process, right? So know that sometimes when you're building, you're not behind, you're just building. So maybe you're on those ground levels, and know that whatever God's doing in your life, whatever he's depositing in your life, it's a work that's important and it needs to be done. So just know that everything is on time and it's going as way as it should. I want to also talk about the lies discouragement tells you, right? Because these things, you might, as you hear this, you might, maybe you're dealing with some imposter syndrome, some low confidence in your career, in your business, whatever that looks like, maybe in your motherhood journey. I want to tell you the lies that may be common. So if any of these resonate with you, then you might be dealing with discouragement, right? You are not enough is one of them. You are not enough to be that mother of the child. Maybe you're feeling that way, or maybe you're feeling you are not enough to be that business leader, to be the leader of that organization, the leader of that church, the leader of whatever that looks like, even maybe the room mom, whatever that looks like, or the leader of this family, like the leader of your children, that is, maybe you're feeling that you're not good enough, and that's a lie, right? Another lie discouragement will tell you is no one's paying attention. No one's paying attention is another one. It's like, why are you putting in all this work? Because no one's even paying attention. It's not impacting anyone. It's not helping anyone. Another lie that you may be hearing if you are dealing with discouragement is that you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. No one's paying attention. This is actually a lie. That you're wasting your time is something that I've been dealing with lately. Of course, I've had this podcast for a few years now, and there's been great growth, and there's been, a lot of great things that have come about from this podcast. But to be quite honest with you, it's not where I envisioned that it would be, I guess it's technically 4 years post launching, even though I took a year off for motherhood, and I've only come back part-time, but it's not where I thought would be, right? And so I was having these lies saying in my head, you're wasting your time. It's not helping anyone. It's not impacting anyone, right? And it wasn't until today that I was in prayer after I had that conversation with my friends and that text message exchange where I was in prayer, and I just really felt like, no, it is impacting people. It's impacting more people than I know that it is. I just felt that conviction in my heart. I was like, I need to show up today because I believe that this is going to bless someone. Even if it blesses one person, that's someone, right? That it's blessing, and it's not a waste of my time, right? So those are some of the lies that you might be dealing with that, right? You might be dealing with you're wasting your time. No one's paying attention. These are not facts. They're feelings, friend. They're fueled by fear. They're fueled by comparison. They're fueled by burnout. They're fueled by a lot of different things. And to be quite honest with you, I think I've been dealing with some fear and some maybe burnout there in different areas. And so these are not facts. These are feelings. And it's really important that we take that into account, because so often we can take feelings and feel like that's a fact. It's a fact. And it's not a fact. It's a feeling, and feelings come and go, and feelings change. Tomorrow could be the best day in your business that you've never seen before, but it's a feeling, right? You are feeling maybe low right now, but tomorrow can be a completely different feeling. So these are some of the lies that discouragement will tell you. And now I want to get into why showing up matters. Showing up, like I mentioned, is so crucial. And the difference between women that have kind of learned how to beat this or have the muscle memory and can push through it versus maybe someone that is kind of newer on the journey of showing up even when they don't want to is, showing up matters. It's so important. It's, I think it was Woody Allen that said that 90%, let me see if I can find the quote for you really quick, but I believe he's the one that said that 90% of life is just showing up. This saying, this is from Woody Allen, and it suggests that simply being present and engaged in life's challenges and opportunities is crucial first step to success. And I 1,000% agree with this. This is something that I've seen so often in my life, that if I am feeling really down, like I don't want to show up, I want to sit in my house under a blanket or in my bed, and I don't feel like showing up. I don't feel like having that hard conversation. I don't feel like doing that thing. I don't feel like doing this thing because it's not easy. I've learned that 90% of the battle is just showing up. 90% of the battle is like getting into the shower, washing your hair, putting on the clothes, getting into the car, getting there. Or in my case today, 90% of the battle was, like praying, like everything that led up to praying. Then, my hair was kind of a mess. So I washed it, I dried it, and I put on these clothes, and I started recording. I started writing and recording it. But 90% is showing up. Then the rest of it is easier, right? So 90% of the challenge, 90% of the struggle is just showing up. If you just show up to the thing, friend, I believe you can get through it. No matter what that challenge is, no matter what that thing is, opportunity, challenge, however you want to see it, however you view it, it's important that you just show up. That's 90% of the battle. How huge is that? That means like literally once you get there, it's only 10% of the battle that's left. So I believe that for whatever you're going through right now, just get there. just get there. You are almost there, friend. Like most of the battle's already done if you just show up, right? So another thing is momentum beats motivation. You won't always feel motivated, but showing up creates a momentum you need to keep going. This is so important. For example, in my life, I see this as working out, right? I think it's such a good example, or such an easy example. I know in my life, when I have momentum in a thing, it's easier because it gives you motivation, right? You won't always feel motivated, but showing up creates momentum, and momentum keeps you going. So when you are, it's like the laws of energy, right? Takes less energy for something that's already in motion to stay in motion versus something that is not in motion to start being in motion. Correct? I know I'm very simplifying kinetic energy and potential energy a lot, but essentially it's that. We learn this in science in school, right? There is more. If you are already, for example, in my life, I started going to spin class. Shout out to anyone that does spin or cycle or any of that stuff, whatever you call it. But I am loving these spin classes, and it's been great. I've been doing it for maybe 3 or 4 months now. And now I'm at a point where I'm showing up 3 times a week, and it's really great for me, for my well-being and all the things that I'm really feeling energized, and why it's so much easier for me to show up 3 times a week to this thing than it was a few months ago when I wasn't showing up at all, when I was barely going to the gym, or if I did go to the gym, it wasn't really working out hard or breaking a sweat, right? So momentum beats motivation. Now I have the momentum of working out. Now I have the momentum of going to that class. So it is with you, friend. So if you are starting a business, launching a new arm of your business, launching a new area of your business, or if you are, in your career and, maybe you are doing something new in your career, right? Momentum beats motivation every time. If you're going back to school, I have a friend that's in school right now, going back to school and getting another degree. And it's like, she's already in it. Momentum beats motivation, right? It can keep you going even when you don't want to, right? And so it is even with this podcast. So the more I'm in it, so the more I continue to do it, the more momentum I have, the easier it is to continue doing the thing, right? That's why it's so important that we learn how to, not let discouragement get so deep that we stop doing the project. Why? Because if you've ever done that, like I have, I had a blog at one point. Like I said, I had a YouTube channel at one point. If you've ever had a project that you were so excited about and then you put it down and then you never picked it back up, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because picking up a project, relaunching, restarting is so much harder, takes so much more energy, so much more encouragement, so much more stamina, so much more boldness than continuing with something you've done. So my prayer is that you just continue with the thing. You don't stop, that you continue to show up even when you don't want to, because it's going to give you energy. It's going to give you momentum. It's going to make everything easier, right? Another thing is faithfulness in the small creates trust in yourself and also trust from others, right? You wouldn't give a big contract to a company that's never even done a small, never done that type of work with a small client, right? It's so often that, you have to create trust in others. Not so often, it's all the time. You always have to, no one's going to give you a big contract. No huge company is going to give you a contract if you've never even done that type of work with any company, right? They want to see results. They want to see proven results. They want to see that you've done the thing before. They want to see that you put in the reps, that you are able to deliver, right? I've never seen anyone start a business. I mean, let me take that back. I've seen people start businesses without websites, and I've seen people start businesses, but how does it start? It starts with word of mouth. It starts with one person saying, oh my gosh, so-and-so did this, she made charcuterie board for me. And it was the most beautiful one. And then someone else is like, oh, can you make my charcuterie board? Just thinking of a random business off the top of my head. But that's how businesses start, right? With trust, right? That means the first person trusted you. You delivered well on that promise. And now they're telling other people, and now others can trust you as well, right? Because you are faithful with the small. You were faithful with, the small project that you had, the small business, faithful with the small. And this relates to other things as well, right? This relates to your personal life. If you're faithful with the small, maybe apartment that God's given you, I believe that he's going to give you a home, a house of your own. I believe if you are faithful with the small house, God will give you a bigger house. I believe that if you are faithful with the small business, with the 3 clients that God has given you, he's going to give you more and more. So faithfulness with the small, this is a biblical principle, right? We have to be faithful with what's entrusted to us with the small things. And as you are you able to steward the small things you were given, you will be entrusted with more, right? So But not only the important thing there is not only that it creates trust from others, it also creates trust in yourself. And I think this is so crucial and so important. It's important that we start to trust ourselves, right? As you start delivering the product, the thing that you are working on more and more efficiently, you do it with less time, you do it more often, you put in more reps, you're going to start building that confidence. It's going to be helpful to you too. It's going to be an encouragement to you, right? So faithfulness in the small builds encouragement in yourself. It kind of keeps discouragement at bay as well. Another point that I think is so crucial is your future self. Look at it this way, right? Your future self is counting on the version of you that chooses to show up now. So the woman that you want to become in 10 years, the woman that you want to become in 5 years, the woman that you want to become 1 year from now, she is counting on you to show up today. She's counting on you to show up and do that thing that's hard today, even when you feel discouraged, even when you feel like no one's watching you, even when you feel like it's a dead end, that you're not making any momentum, that you're never going to get there. She's expecting that from you. She's counting on you. She will never be the woman that she will never come to pass. You will never get there. She will never be real if you don't put in the work now, if you don't show up now, even when it's hard. And so I think that that's so crucial, that you're doing yourself a favor, even if you show up today, not the best, but you're showing up. That's how the woman that you want to become will become a reality, right? So that's important. So your future self is counting on the version of you that chooses to show up today. How do you show up when you're discouraged? Well, some tips for showing up when you're discouraged is lower the bar, don't quit, right? It doesn't have to be your best day. It doesn't have to, but just don't let it be your last day, right? So it doesn't have to be the perfect email that you're sending out to your email list. It doesn't have to be the best, I don't know, the best. I'm trying to think of what an interior designer does. The best room that you've ever designed in your life. It doesn't have to be the best speech you've ever given. If you are a motivational speaker, it doesn't have to be the best day at your corporate job. It doesn't have to be the whatever, the best email. It doesn't have to be any of those things, right? It just can't be your last, right? So lower the bar, but don't quit. So it just, as long as you show up, that's more than enough. You're building that muscle mass, you're building that muscle memory. It's important, right? So don't, when you are feeling discouraged, lower the bar. You don't have to be on 100. You don't have to be on 90%, 95% of your best work. Just show up, even if it's 75%, even if it's 50%. It's better showing up and giving 50% than giving 0% and not showing up, because then the fear is, or the danger is, that you won't show up again. Like it says, like, don't let it be your last day, right? Another way to show up when you're discouraged is to create mini wins, right? If the thing seems overwhelming, the creating the video, whatever, then shoot just 5 minutes, record just 5 minutes. That's better than nothing, right? Or maybe post a story. If that's like less overwhelming than the post, then post a story. Send the email, just send whatever email you can, the best that you could, do it. Create mini little wins, right? Even if it's sending an email, just responding to someone in your inbox, right? That could be a win. Respond to the emails that are pending in your inbox. That could be a win. Whatever the little mini win looks like. Some days it's like going to the gym, right? If you want to start going to the gym and you want to start working out often, it's important that I always refer back to Atomic Habits, because I think it's such a great book. Atomic Habits is an amazing book. I highly recommend it to all of you. If you haven't read it yet, I think it's such a great read. Anyways, Atomic Habits talks about that. Like, if you want to develop the habit of going to the gym, we'll make it easy. Start just going to the gym. Just start with going to the gym, even if it's for 5 minutes. It sounds kind of crazy. Like, why would I go all the way to the gym for 5 minutes? Why? Because you're creating the habit, and it's a win. You got to the gym and you worked out for 5 minutes. What happens after working out for 5 minutes? Most of the time, you're going to be like, 5 minutes was great. I'm going to work out for 10 minutes. I'm going to work out for 15 minutes. And that's how the habit starts. And then eventually you get to a higher place, and it's habit stacking, right? But just create the habit of getting to the gym. That's the win, right? That's the mini win. Get to the gym. That's the mini win in that scenario, right? And so it is with anything you're working on, any project you're working on. Create a mini win. What can the mini win look like? Is it, I showed up for work, I didn't do the best with my project, but I got dressed and I went to work? Or maybe it was washing your kids' clothes and hugging your kids and giving them a meal that day. That's how you showed up. That was a mini win. You accomplished something big that day, right? You showed up as a mom. Maybe it wasn't your best day as a mom. Maybe you didn't pour into your kids the way you wanted to, but you showed up, right? So that's a mini win, right? Speak the truth out loud. Remind yourself of what's true. Declare your why. This is something that was so helpful to me even today, right? I was kind of losing track of my why. I was losing track of, I'm in this process with all transparency. This podcast has always been business, entrepreneurship, and all that. And I see myself going a lot into the self improvement space, self development, and all that, just because I feel very called to that area. And so I'm in this crux of, if you will, on the road where I'm in between both, right? Both categories. And I felt like I was kind of like losing like my why, because it just felt like, okay, who am I serving? And then today when I was in prayer, I was like, no, I know who I'm serving. I'm serving these ambitious women that have their businesses, have their careers, but are dealing with discouragement. They're dealing with imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs, all these different things, right? And when I was reminded of my why, it made everything clear for me. It gave me encouragement. Speaking out my why of me showing up, it's not just about me. It's showing up for the women that need to hear this. So if you are watching this today as it is published, or if you're watching this a year from now or 2 years from now, that's my why, right? If you are encouraged from this video, if this gives you what you need to hear, if this is the encouragement, the love, the kick in the butt, whatever you want to call it, that you needed, that's my why, right? And that is why it's important. And it really spoke to me. It really encouraged me. It really gave me the stamina that I needed to finish getting ready and turn on the mic and turn on this camera to get out there, right? So speak the truth out loud. Remind yourself of what's true, of who you are, declare your why. All of these things will help you when you are feeling discouraged. That's how you show up, of showing up when you are discouraged, right? Another thing that you can do when you are feeling discouraged is take a break, not a breakdown. Sometimes pausing is showing up for your mental health, and that's okay, right? I think it's so often, if you have to take a break and not break down, that's important, right? I've done that in different seasons. Like I mentioned, I took a whole year sabbatical when my second was born, for motherhood, for maternity leave, whatever you want to call it. And that's how I showed up for my mental health in that season. And that was really important. The podcast did not shut down. Everything kept going, as far as like you could listen to previous episodes and all that. And now I'm back, right? And so take a break and not a breakdown. Sometimes it's slowing down. It's important. Another case of this that I thought was so beautiful was Vanessa Lau. Shout out to Vanessa Lau. Maybe some of you guys have seen her on YouTube. She's a huge creator on YouTube. Her story is essentially she left the corporate space and she started going on YouTube, I think maybe around 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. I started following her probably in 2019. And she's at 2019 or so. She's such a great creator in the online space. She blew up in the online space. She blew up with social media and Instagram and helping people with all that, and YouTube. And she just had so many courses, and she was just growing and growing and growing. Her business was booming. She had hundreds of thousands of followers. Things were going right with her business, with all the things. And she ended up scaling and scaling and scaling and having a masterclass and more and more. And it just got to a point where she actually was very unhappy. She was actually very burnt out. She had created a business that was incredible from the outside, but it was killing her on the inside. She was not happy. And she ended up basically shutting the whole thing down. She shut the whole thing down. I remember getting an email around the time that I was actually going on my maternity leave. I remember getting an email from her because I think I got one of her freebies, or I don't know. And it was basically saying that her course, and anyone that had bought into any of her courses, to watch the content now, you can download some of the stuff, because the courses were no longer going to exist. They were going to cease to exist. Like, it was done. She was shutting everything down, shutting down the whole operation because of burnout. And so instead of taking a break, she basically broke down in that season, and she completely shut the whole thing, which I'm sure was over $1 million operation, shut the whole thing down, right? And what happened after that was actually beautiful. She actually ended up taking like over a year sabbatical for her mental health. She regained herself. She regained a sense of purpose and vision for her life and her family and all the things. And she came back, and now she has a new vision for her business. She started a new business with her fiance. She is doing new things. She's doing the YouTube, but her way, and just it has a different fresh perspective. So she ended up taking a mental break. She took it for her mental health. She paused. I thought at the time it looked like she was shutting the whole thing down. It looked like it was done. It was a breakdown, whatever. But she ended up turning it into a pause and coming back with a healthy perspective, right? So sometimes you have to take a break for your mental health, and that's what she did. And she came back, and she is thriving in this new season. That's a beautiful example of that. But what happens is, so often people break down and then they never come back, right? They break down because they didn't take the break. So in this case, it looked like it was a breakdown, but then it turned into a break, and now she came back and it's healthy. So My encouragement to you is take that break if you have to. If you know you're affecting your mental health and it's time, take the break, not the breakdown, right? So pausing and showing up sometimes is your mental health. So whatever that looks like, that is a beautiful story. And I hope that encourages you too. If you need to do that, there's no shame in that. There's also different seasons. I've also walked through, I've mentioned in the podcast before, I wanted to launch my podcast since 2017. I ended up launching it in 2021. And in 2017, 2018, I remember I bought like a microphone. I bought some of the gear. I was going to start the podcast. I was like set on it in I think it was 2018, 2018. And then my mother-in-law ended up getting sick and she ended up getting cancer. And within 6 months, she passed away. And my husband was her primary caretaker and I was, kind of there as well helping and we ended up becoming like guardians to my brother-in-law, and it was a deep personal thing that we walked through, and it was, we experienced great loss obviously with losing her and all that, and then I got pregnant and the pandemic hit and there were just so many things. So I'm sharing all of this because there are seasons in life where there's just a lot going on, friend, and if you cannot do it, whatever that dream is, because there's a lot going on, that's okay. That's 100% okay. The time will come, the season will come. So do whatever is best for you and your family, do whatever is best for your mental health, So I say all this of showing up if you are not walking through one of those seasons where you just can't. And if you are walking through those seasons, just be encouraged that your season will come. Different seasons will come and you will be able to work on that, walk into that purpose, walk into that dream, work on that dream that you feel called to do. So I just want to encourage you with that. But there you have it. I want to remind you that, you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. I think so often we think that everything has to go perfect. Success is linear. It's this one thing, and success is not linear, friend. I actually saw I've seen a lot of diagrams where it shows like success is actually like a zigzag line. It's not linear, right? It's like sometimes you're up, then you take 5 steps back, and then you take 10 steps forward, and then you take 4 steps back. And that's just the way that life is, right? So, the enemy of purpose will always try to discourage you, because discouraged women don't dream. They don't lead, they don't create. But today you get to prove that lie wrong, right? So courage isn't the absence of discouragement. It's the decision to show up in spite of it, friends. So I want you to show up with courage. I want you to do that thing. I want you to show up today, even though you feel discouraged. I hope that you will feel encouraged that you got this. You can do this thing, right? Your dreams are attainable. You can get that thing. You can work on your goals. You can become the woman that you feel called to become. It's not too late. You're just building. So keep showing up. Someone's watching, someone's waiting, and God is still working. So there you have it. There you have it. I hope you were encouraged. I hope that this episode helped you with showing up when you don't want to and battling through discouragement. And I hope to see you next time. As always, I hope that you will follow us on Instagram, the But First She Failed Instagram page, and reach out to me. Let me know. I want to know, what are you dealing with? What discouragement are you dealing with today as you listen to this podcast? And how are you showing up despite the discouragement that is? So anyways, I hope this encouraged you, and I hope to see you next time.